Now let's go through Christ's reputation. 1:7. I'll just read these to you. I'll try not and comment on them too much. They're hard to not comment on, but I'll try not to. I already commented on the first one, where John the Baptist said, I can't even untie his shoe in 1:7. You know what he's saying there? John the Baptist saying he's divine. And John the Baptist, remember in John 1:29, it says that John pointed his finger at Jesus and said, look, there's the Lamb of God. And his whole ministry, if you ever want a good study John the Baptist. His whole life was a pointer at Jesus. His philosophy of life was, Jesus must increase, I must decrease. What a great motto. Most people say, I want to increase, I want to increase, I want to increase, in my notoriety, my fame, in my well-being, and my wealth. John says, I want to decrease, I want to decrease, I want to decrease, and I want Christ only always to be seen in me. He's divine. Look at 1:24. This is amazing. This is the first time we break into what the spirit world thinks. And in 1:24, this demonized man cried out and said, let us alone. There was multiple demons within this man. What have we to do with you, Jesus of Nazareth? Did you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God. Quotes Isaiah. Those demons, by the way, they know the Bible. They know who Jesus is. And they call him by one of the most elevated of all the names in the Old Testament, the Holy One, the high, holy, and lifted up one that Isaiah talked about. And those demons look past the robe and the peasant garb and, the whole poverty-stricken look that Christ had, and he says, I know who you are. You're not fooling me hiding between that humble robe there. You are God. Is it time? And what I see here is that he has the divine titles that are known in the spirit world. I mean, they don't play around in the spirit world. They know those shots. They know who's in control. And whenever the demons got around Christ, now wait a minute, demons? Peretti, wrote all those books, and people kind of think of them as those big, flabby, sulfurous breath, yellow-eyed monsters. A demon is very powerful. I mean, apart from Christ, we should be mortified of demons. They are utterly powerful. A demonized person a human body with a demon in can rip chains, steal chains. They can break, those hammered shackles. They can just take them and pull them off. They can rip metal. They can beat up. One demonized man beat up 7 full-grown men and left them bleeding and running with their clothes torn off. I mean, we're talking about great power. I had a friend who was a CHP, California Highway Patrol, and he said that they were chasing this guy who was high on drugs, and he pulled out a gun, and so the policeman, and it was awful, but he took his shotgun. He said the man ran at him with the gun, and he said he just shot him head on with the shotgun. And he said it just blew a part of his side out, and he said he never stopped running. He kept coming at him, so he shot him again, and his partner shot him. And he said he didn't stop. And finally just dropped right next to him. And he said, you know what? He was a Christian. He says, I think that guy wasn't just high on drugs. He said, I think he was demonized. And those demons can just so permeate a body, it can just do superhuman things. Well, those demons were petrified in the presence of Christ, and they would scream. Look at 3:11. Here's another terrified demon. Whenever they got around Jesus, they were afraid. And the unclean spirits in 3:11, whenever they saw him, look at this, they fell down. I mean, here's this guy that looked absolutely normal in real life. I mean, he was a little dirty-minded and always was telling bad jokes. He was filled with demons. When he saw Christ, wham! So, can you imagine people all over just falling on the ground whenever they got around Jesus? I mean, the religious leaders wouldn't think of doing that. But the demons know who he is. And even the unregenerated are aware of what worship is. They fell down before him. And they cried out saying, you are God the Son. And he says, I don't want you to witness for me. I don't need your help. Look at 5:7. And he cried out with a loud voice. This is another demonized guy. And he says, what have I to do with you, Jesus, Son of the Most High? I implore you by God, don't get near me. Do not torment me. You know what that demon was saying? You have the power of eternal destruction. That's what Revelation says. He has in his hands the keys of hell and death. And this demon was petrified it was time to go to the pit. And yet humans don't have to go to the pit. And they're not even petrified that's where they're headed. See, it's astounding. If people would just have listened to Christ, or today if they would listen. 2 more, we'll be done. Mark 8:29 is the 5th reputation, what others said about Christ. It's Mark 8:29. And he said to them, who do you say that I am? Here's Jesus, he's interviewing his closest friends. And Peter answered, Mark 8:29, and said to him, "You are the Christ." Now look at this. The greatest man that ever lived, the prophet John the Baptist, said, "You're divine." All the demons, when they got around him, they said, "You're the Holy One of God." Now his closest friends that lived with him for 3 years and knew him awake, asleep, tired, hungry, they knew everything about him. They said, "You are the Messiah. You are the sum of all the Old Testament prophets." And the closest friends Christ had affirmed him that he was God. His enemies did, the prophets did, the demons did, everybody. One last group does. Mark 16:6. Here's the end. See, third time through. I told you we'd make it. Mark 16:6. This angel's in verse 5. This young man clothed in a long white robe. Just something for you to think about. Anytime you ever see anybody that's in the presence of God in eternity, they are dressed as absolutely modestly as you can be dressed. Just think about that. Those that always face God are absolutely modest. I think that's something we need to remind a few people that are God's holy temple today. Every time you see someone in heaven or that came from heaven, they're wearing a long white robe. Notice, a long white robe. It was summer, and he wasn't wearing a short, comfortable, cool robe. A long. I mean, this is an angel. I mean, that's how we know it's an angel. I mean, this guy is coming from the presence of God, and they were alarmed. But listen what the angel says about Jesus. Don't be alarmed. He says, "You're seeking Jesus of Nazareth, the one that was crucified? He's risen. He's not here." See? See where they laid him? So we have the testimony of angels, demons, prophets, and best friends. And they all said, Jesus is God. Jesus says, "I'm the judge of all. I'm the bridegroom. I'm the Lord of the Sabbath." He says, "I'm the founder of the new people of God. I'm the judge. I'm determining your destiny." And what he did, he healed, he forgave sins. You know the rest. He raised the dead. Well, I want to remind you of what we saw when he was walking on the sea. Jesus is passing by here tonight. Some of you, he just passed by as we were talking about him here. But if you want him in your boat, you have to ask him in. He doesn't force himself into anybody's life. He only comes by invitation. I hope tonight that you've invited Jesus Christ into your boat before it sinks.